Our human bodies have a complex architecture of bones, muscles, and organs. They work together harmoniously to perform various tasks. And, in a way, the same goes for computers. The computer architecture is the heart of the computer and the heart of the digital world. But what did the computer architecture look like in the past? What do terms like CPU, RAM, and GPU all mean? What role does memory play in computer operations? In 1945, a Hungarian mathematician named John von Neumann created something that shocked the world: the von Neumann model, a computer architecture model that follows this diagram. The model is a bit different from another model that is created 6 years before, called the Harvard model. While the Harvard model separates its data and instructions into two separate memory units, unlike the von Neumann model where both of them are stored in the single unit, the architecture soon became the standard of most general-purpose computers nowadays. In fact, if you look back at the anatomy of a modern computer, it will all trace its way back to the von Neumann model with just a few more upgrades. So, what does each of those computer components do? In this section, we're going to discover the purposes of each component by building our own computer. First, we're going to prepare our case for the computer, which will contain all of our hardware components. Next, we will prepare our motherboard. The motherboard is the heart and backbone of the computer. It connects all the other components together in one place. Notice how the left side has an enlarged part. That is for our input-output devices, such as mouse, screens, speakers, and so on. There are three things we will install on this motherboard: the CPU, the GPU, and RAM. The CPU, or Central Processing Unit, handles all logic and calculations inside the computer. The CPU can process numerous instructions simultaneously. Like the von Neumann model, the CPU also has the Arithmetic Logic Unit and Control Unit. We're going to look into how these parts work in the next video. The CPU fetches data that needs to be processed from the RAM, or random access memory. The memory stored in the RAM is temporary and will not be safe once the computer powers down. And finally, the GPU, or the Graphics Processing Unit, is good at processing numerous complex mathematical tasks, such as graphic processing and rendering. Let's put our motherboard inside the case. Next, we will head to our storage units, which store operating systems, softwares, and user files even when the computer powers down. There are two types of storage units. First is the hard disk drive, or HDD, which stores our data on a spinning disk. And second is the solid state drive, or SSD. The SSD performs the same function as the HDD, but it's faster, more durable, and more expensive because it uses flash memory, which doesn't require any spinning parts. And finally, we have our power supply unit, or PSU, which supplies electricity to the rest of the components for it to run. And voila! Our computer is complete. Well, it should be mentioned, there are just the main components of a computer. Computers nowadays have a much more complex architecture than this. However, these are the bare minimum requirements for the computer to work. In summary, we explored all the computer components by building our own computer, which includes a case, input-output devices, a motherboard which connects every other component together, the CPU, RAM, GPU, memory units, HDD and SD, and a power supply unit. Now, if we look at this computer, we can also see its resemblance to the original von Neumann model. We can see the input and output devices, memory units, and the processing units. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video where we learn how the computer executes programs.